Okay, everybody, I'm back. Sorry about the stop there in part one because my mom just called. She was checking up on things. But anyway, like I was saying, basically the whole situation with Sonic and Amy when it came to Sonic X is, yes, it was an anime. Yes, it was very closely adapted, if not a straight adaptation of the games, but they were given some liberties. But more so, I want you to notice that those liberties were granted towards the end of each season, especially the second and more so third seasons, at certain moments and everything, certain times and moments. But again, it goes back to the fact that just because Sonic can't date someone like an Amy Rose in, like, say, Sonic X or in the games, or have a serious relationship, doesn't mean he doesn't care for her. And again, that's all about the mandates. That is why, again, when you go back to the comic, why they have the mandates for him to date Sally only. Well, not Sally only. Let me correct myself, because I know some people are going to start saying things about that. But basically, this is why Sonic, as I mentioned in part one, is always on and off with Sally, because it's a relationship that you could turn on and keep going for a little while, and then when you need to, you could turn it off and, you know, put it on the shelf for a while, and then bring it off the shelf when it's ready. Again, rinse and repeat. You know, repeat the loop. You get the idea. Endless circle. That's what it is. It's the same thing. Rinse and repeat. Go through the endless loop over and over. Rinse and repeat. Constant circle. Constant going around in a circle. Going around the same circle all the time. That is why Sonic and Sally are always, well, not always, but at times, if not most, put together and then taken apart, because it's one of those, because their relationship allows that to happen. And again, the difference with the games and the comics is you take a look at the age. If you want to look at age-wise, Sonic is, like I say, is about 5 to 6 years older than Amy. And in the comics, and in the games, if not the anime, he's about only 2 to 3 years older. So there's a big difference. Now, another mandate that constantly pisses people off and feels that causes the comic not to develop a lot for the characters themselves is the fact that Sonic and company can never lose. Now, a lot of people will come out and say, well, they really strained that, didn't they? They really pushed that envelope so far at the beginning of the story arc. That is true. But as you noticed, the loss, the downfall was only temporary. And I guess in the eyes of many fans, because of the mandates, in the eyes of many fans, you had Sonic and company bounce back and constantly continue to do what they do. And again, it's all about the mandates. Yeah, you can have Sonic and company down and out for a time, but you can't have them down and out for long. You got to have them bounce back. A good example of the mandate is the 175 arc. You had Sonic beaten down and broken at the end of 175, but by 176 and into 177, you had him, you had the game cast, you had the Chaotix, you had the game cast, you had the comic cast, Satayam cast. You had those characters along with Sonic bouncing back just like that, like nothing happened. Basically, it's called temporariness. And that's what these mandates, certain mandates, like the relationship one, like Sonic losing one, it's all about the mandates. It's all about the mandates and how they allow certain things to be temporary, but most of the time it's got to be the way Sega wants it to be. You know, that's how it is. Now, one of the mandates apparently some people are saying are being enforced now is the fact that Sonic and company cannot acknowledge family. They cannot acknowledge they have any relatives or any parents. Well, I think that only goes for the games. Now, if it goes to the comics, and that's kind of ridiculous, since we kind of see the parents at times, if not most times, we see them. So, But if that is a mandate for the comics, then you could probably expect not to see Sonic's parents, Tails' parents, any mention of Amy's family, or whatsoever, Knuckles' family. You could probably pretty much figure you're not going to see or hear from them for quite some time because of that mandate, if it gets enforced. But again, the reason for the mandate, whether we like it or not, is to make the characters closer to what people see in the games. So that when people play the games and then go read the comics, they can see the similarities. That's why these mandates are around and about, whether we like them or not. I mean, Ian Flynn, I'll give him credit, has even come out and said, look, I don't like the mandates at all. I'm with you guys. I don't like certain mandates that are handed down by Sega. But they're the ones that basically have the final say, so I have no choice, whether I like the mandates or not. I mean, and it's not just mandates of what can be done with characters or what can be used, well, what can be done with the characters in the comic and what can be used in the comics and what kind of stories can be done or how the stories can be done. It's also the fact mandates are also there, the mandates are also there, whether we like it or not, to help Sega promote certain things. I mean, I will admit, I for one am not too thrilled with the fact that they interrupted the main comic and the Universe comic just for promotional reasons. Now, I can probably understand that the Universe comic had an opening, and that's okay. That's okay. I get that. I mean, the same could be said with the opening they got up with issue 50. I get that. I'm totally for that. I get that. I understand that. I respect that. But let's say that wasn't an opening. Let's say there was a story going on in the Universe, and yet they wanted to interrupt it for that. It wouldn't be too thrilling, would it? Now, again, you could probably make an exception for the Universe 45. But when you take a look, when you interrupt a story, when you use an issue in your main comic, thus interrupting a story arc that you're working on, and thus only give that story arc only a few pages with a backstory, that pretty much shows you that it's the mandates being handed down by Sega. It's like Ian has said, and I quote, when they tell us to do something, we got to do it, whether we like it or not. And I'm sure Ian didn't like the idea of having to get the phone call and go like, yeah, Ian, this is Sega. We want you to use 240 something, blah, 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 issue 242 or 241, whatever, and we want you to use it for an Olympic tie-in for the comic. And you can just imagine Ian going like, oh, wait a minute, the Olympics are going to pass by the time this issue comes out. He says, oh, it doesn't. And you can hear Sega going, oh, well, we're not just promoting it for the Olympics, we're also promoting it for the Sonic Mario game. And if you don't do it, we're going to pretty much make sure you get fired, and we'll get somebody else to do it. So there you go. And probably also said something like, and if you guys don't do it, we'll take away the license. Which kind of goes back to looking at that strained relationship that both sides have with each other. But again, you can only imagine that, and you can only imagine him getting the call for the crossover, like, oh, by the way, we got this crossover coming up with Capcom's Mega Man. We want you to do it around 240 something, blah blah blah. But wait a minute, that's going to interfere with the main arc. Oh, it don't matter. People can wait. Either you do it, or we'll fire you, or we'll take away the license. Bye. That's basically what it is. That's what the mandates are. That's basically what a mandate also is. The fact that whether you like it or not, whether you're the writer, the editor, whatever, if you have licensing representatives like those from Sega, or if you have any kind of licensing representative from any franchise in which you're doing a comic book adaptation, and they say they want, and they tell you, oh, we just got word that they want this done in this issue, and they want this crossover done within these issues, and you kind of try to tell them, well, wait a minute, that's not going to work because of this and that, It ain't gonna matter. It's either their way or the highway. And that is one, and that is why, and that also is why mandates are around. But those are the kind of mandates nobody likes. But again, those are the kind of mandates nobody likes. But again, it goes back to the other mandates of what can be done in the comics with the characters, what kind of stories and stuff can be done. It's about the fact that Sega has the final say, or whatever company is licensing the property to you, or to you to do a comic of, to do a comic book adaptation of, they have the final say. And if they come out and say, hey, we want an issue dedicated to an Olympic tie-in to our Summer Olympic sequel, a London game, our Mario Sonic London Games game, or London game Wii game, then you got no choice. You know, if they say, hey, we want you to dedicate one issue of Universe to our Sonic and Sega All-Stars Transformed game, then so be it. You got no choice. You get word that, hey, we want you to dedicate these 4 issues of the main comic and Universe to a crossover with Mega Man, then you got no choice. It's either that or they lose the license, and Ian Flynn loses his job. Now, I know a lot of people wouldn't mind Ian Flynn losing his job because they figure, hey, Ian Flynn loses his job, we'll get somebody better. Not entirely. They could end up hiring somebody that's just as good as Ian, if not maybe better or less than better, and they can end up being the kind that will say, hey, no problem, I'll do whatever you want. And that's exactly the point. Again, that is exactly the point that anybody on this topic, on this forum here, the Sega forums, is trying to make. The fact that no matter how you look at it, no matter what you say or how you feel about the mandates, they're always going to be there. And either the mandates that make sense, or either the mandates that don't make sense and are completely ridiculous, they're always going to be there. And that is why, whether we like the fact that they interrupted the main story arc for an Olympic tie-in and thus used the backstory for a few pages of the backstory just to tie into it, or tie into the main story, that is why people, whether we like it or not, it's because of mandates. Whether we like the fact that Sonic can't be with Amy and blah, 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 Sonic can't always be with Sally or whatever, it's because of mandates. Whether we like the fact that Sonic can have something like a traumatic experience where he doesn't know if he can win again, and constantly messes up and loses and blah, 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 which could help develop his and everybody else's characters, is because of mandates. The acknowledgement of family or parents, whether that's a mandate that's going to get enforced in the near future, again, because of mandates. Can't cry, can't do this, blah, 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 because of mandates. Has to bounce back right after getting his ass kicked, become the hero, defeat the villain, because of mandates. Basically the mandates that basically Sega wants so they can have the characters seem similar, if not the same, as what they fans see in the games. So hopefully that helped out. I'm sorry this was in 2 parts. I know some people will get on my ass about it, but I apologize. Just take your time in watching these, and I'll talk to you all later. God bless. Take care.